The most overlooked ICT building block slash PD array slash IPDA is the breaker block. Believe it or not, a lot of them overlook this concept because it's relatively kind of harder to know, right? It's kind of hard to learn and kind of harder to see in the market because there's complicated instructions to it, which all you need is a high, and this is going to be the last down candle that sweeps out the high. But you're gonna close it below the wick, and eventually retap it and then go lower. That right there is a breaker block. A lot of you guys just when you see the down close candle, you think that's a breaker block. That is not a breaker block, right? You have to do a specific protocol. You first has to be the down close candle, as well as it goes super the high. It's the last down close candle that super this high right over here. As well, it has to be the and as well has to do what? I forgot my own self, okay? All right, you got me. But let's get straight back into I'm not gonna start another video, okay? I'm not gonna start another video. It has to be the last down close candle that sweeps out the high. So there's the high right over here. Let's just say there's a high. Let me just do my aesthetic drawing. Last down close candle that sweeps out the high, and you have to close below it. Now that is your breaker block. It could be this candle. It could be this two consecutive candle, or just this candle right over here by itself. But when there's a consecutive candle and you got a closure below it, this consecutive candle is gonna be a breaker block. And you're all waiting for retest and go lower from there forward. That right there is your breaker block. And one last thing that you guys are missing why your breaker blocks don't work is because you have to apply it with logic and drawn liquidity. You can't just patternize a breaker block. There's breaker block everywhere. Breaker block to the downside. Last down close candle to the high. Didn't work. You guys wanna use this with logic. Logic. But this is as well as the most overlooked ICT concept. Now let me show you guys more examples. Right over here. Last up close candle that super out the low and its breaker block was used to push price higher from here. Boom. Last down close candle to the high. Got a closure below. Eventually retapped it and went lower. This is the breaker block. Now this must be used in two specific ways. And those two specific ways must align. It must put a high or low. It must get a closure below it. And it must be logical and must make sense. You must go with the high of drawn liquidity. You cannot pattern trade this. This is the most overlooked ICT concept, which is, which is insane to me, as well as it's the most powerful ICT concept, the strongest PD array out of the PD arrays. This right over here is the strongest PD array out of everything else. It's stronger than the fair value gap. It's stronger than everything. Breaker block are the strongest PD array as well. They are the most overlooked PD array as well. Show you guys more examples. This would be the last up closing candle that soup out this low, or it could be you have to go based on your POV, right? I see this is the last up closing candle that soup out this low. You can see this as this, because you can see this that being last up closing candle that soup out this low. There's ways, and this right here, would be your breaker block. Tapped it and went up higher from here, as well as the OT here as well. Now let me give you guys more examples. That's down closing candle that souped out the high. Boom. Eventually, this right over here is your breaker block. You can see this is the unusual form of it, and it still worked out though, right? It did got a closure above it, but guess what? Wake does a damage, body tells the story. You guys more give you guys more examples. And the examples I'm showing you guys here are the examples of it being used in a logical way. These are not patternized because this day, obviously bearish, right? So, and my higher second on the Q is bearish as well. So that's why I say that. Let me give you guys my example. That would have not been a good example. Yeah, market never closed above it either way. Actually, this is a good example. So over here, it wouldn't be your breakup block because this is the last highlight to the low, but this would have been your key level because why? It never closed above it. Now over here, it closed above it, tapped it, and eventually went up a little higher. But overall, on this day, you want to just tap this and go long that shit up for a little bit without going all the way over here because market is not gonna go there. Market needs to go reverse from there because that specific price point was gonna cause a reversal. So take this as a short term push to the upside and call it a day there. Let me show you guys more examples. Show you guys one more example here. The last high that dug below the low right over here. Boom. Tapped it, went up higher from here. Usually the people call this the 0 to the tick drawdown would be the body. Always the body would be the 0 to the drawdown tick. In this case, that's not a drawdown, but it did reverse from it. So if you enter that specific 4-hour time frame, you would have had 0 drawdown, but lower time frame face a little drawdown, but this would be the 0 to tick drawdown, which is true in the lower time frame basis more often than not. Show you guys one more example. Last down close candle that soup out the high. And eventually, the right dynamic in this case, you can see how this one failed because the dynamic of this trade reversed back to the upside. Why did it reverse back to the upside? Because of the drawn liquidity being bullish. So this one failed because drawn liquidity was bullish. Let me give you guys one more example before we end this off. Last high that dug below the low. Got a closure above. Tapped it. Boom. In this case, usually people would want this to close above this to get to long it up. But in this case, you wouldn't even have to wait for that because there's an order block confirmed. Boom. So you just enter the order block, long that shit up. But usually, most of the time, you always want a closure above this high right over there, right? Then eventually you had your breakup block. But that's not a very good example. Let me give you guys a good example here. Let me give you guys a very good example. Right over here, the last high that's above the low. OTE. This one right here, look, there's the damage bar that tells the story. I'll get up here. The dynamic was bullish as well. And you could have made a huge profit out of that. Thank you for watching. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, share. This is breakup block, the most overlooked ICT concept, but the most important ICT concept, which has one of the most highest probability of you working out. But you must be used through logic, and this is one of the strongest key level. Everything is, in my eyes, is used equally. They're all, one isn't over the other. Or one isn't the under the other. They all are equal. And the only concept I'm talking about, I'm not talking about the market profile in the lower time frame. I'm talking about daily profile, weekly profile. They're all are equally. They're not disfavored, especially in PD arrays. Ferrari gap isn't better than breakup block. A breakup block isn't better than a Ferrari gap, right? A order block isn't better than a liquidity sweep, whatever, right? You're all equal. If you're watching, I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Make sure to just go down below. I'll see you guys later. Peace.